position as Dallas County GOP chair?
Yeah, so my entrance into politics was running for a county-wide race, which is, not the norm, pretty unheard of, but I'm just part of that great American awakening, the parental movement, all the things, kind of COVID, Trump, all the things that sort of started to wake people up. And that's me. And so in that process, I just learned a massive amount by fire through experience. And so running in, one of the largest counties in the United States, Dallas County, it's 2.7 million people. It taught me a lot. So I ran for county judge, which is not an actual judge. In Texas, we call it judge, but it's a CEO of the county. It's an executive position. Or we call it like mayor of the county. So a lot of people don't know that. I'm not.
Right, well, in New Jersey, some counties have county executive. Right. Yes. This is the first time I'm hearing about how that the judge is essentially the county executive for. Yes, in your county, Texas.
It is. It's very strange. It's one of those special Texas things, so it's very confusing. So I'm not an attorney, nor did I need to be. It's truly an executive position. So in that, I got acquainted with our own Dallas County Republican Party, and it just was not necessarily what I thought it would be. I think we've seen some fractures in the county parties throughout the United States. It just wasn't as welcoming as I thought I'd be. It was a tougher battle than my general to get through that primary. I was really coming up against people who had been in politics for 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, and they weren't really willing to welcome a newcomer. And I just don't think that's the way of the future in politics. There's too many people like me, moms with school-age children, who are disgusted with the way the world's going and we want to do something about it. Well, that's in politics at all levels. And so that's why I'm taking, my experience as a candidate, which I think is very unique. Being a candidate is a life-changing experience. Taking my professional life experience, which I'm an entrepreneur, I've started many brands and companies with my husband, and combining those. And in my opinion, it makes a great leader of a county party, because Republicans must build a machine. They must win the culture war. We've got to bring new people in our party. Yep. Like, something's got to change. And so I think it's going to be people with a profile like mine they're going to get it done.
Well, when you're running for Dallas County judge, what were you hearing from the voters on the campaign trail?
Yeah, so people just want to be heard and represented. They feel like their government does not listen. They feel like their government despises them, doesn't want them to be, be involved. They pretend like it. They play this little game and show, and the gig's up. People can tell, they're getting their news from other places. They're not relying on the big media companies anymore. So this veil that they've placed over politics is currently being lifted, and just people want to interact with their government and be represented. That was number one. And then all the obvious COVID stuff, the tyranny, things of that nature. But overall, access to government was a big one.
Right. I mean, you kind of got involved in politics the same way I got involved. I got involved pretty much for the same reasons. And pretty much I first got involved with the 2016 presidential election. Mm-hmm. I really liked the message that Donald Trump brought to the party. Yeah. Because we definitely need people who don't come from a political background, per se. Yeah. And he was that guy who just shook things up. He didn't care what anyone thought about what he did, because he ran the country like a business, which I also liked. Mm-hmm. But also, even as he was getting through, the impeachments, the indictments, his raid of his private home, and the fact that he just withstood all this like it was nothing is really inspiring to a lot of people.
Yes. Yeah. I think he's just the first person in a long time who gave the average person a voice. And that's disruptive. And that's what I found in my own little tiny microcosm of what he exposed is represented in every county across America. And that's just everyday people come from all backgrounds and all different professional experiences. They want access to their government. And when they step in a meaningful way, they find out that they're really not wanted there. And people, these uniparty is alive and well. It's alive and well in Texas. It exists here. Are just trying to push people out, and your mere presence is divisive. So I've gotten, some criticism like, "Oh, Lauren, you're so divisive." And I said, I'm actually not. I'm a pretty nice person. Most of my life I was go along to get along, just a typical mom and an entrepreneur, like not making waves. But the second you question somebody or seek truth, you are disruptive. And, that's just something we're going to have to live with. And I think, Trump completely represents that. Like, he was not fazed because he knew his mission, and it was to disrupt. And he built a lot amidst the disruption, which I think is pretty unique. But things cannot continue the way they're going. It's not sustainable.
Right. And now let's talk about your race for Dallas County GOP chair. So you're going up against an incumbent, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And so what have you been hearing from the voters, Republicans of Dallas County? Have they shown more optimism towards you, or they feel that the incumbent is the better option?
Sure. So where we're at, we're pretty early in the race. So all your, or at least in Texas, so your GOP chairs will be on the primary ballot. So when Trump and DeSantis are duking it out at the top, someone like me would be down at the bottom of the ticket. And from what I can gather, the typical standard process is that at some point, someone gets appointed to this position and then they go on the ballot unopposed. The majority of the races in Dallas County, with maybe the exception of one, are like that. No one really challenges this position, partially because Republicans aren't so great at local politics, and you don't get, much more local than this. And there's just, I don't know if we've got a recruiting problem or what. There's not a lot of people who want the position. It's pretty thankless. It's unpaid, and you take a lot of heat. So right now, I'm doing the unusual, which is challenging the incumbent, which is already a sort of fiery topic around here. And I think, I won our primary when I was running for judge against the party. The party was not for me. And I won with 69% of the vote. And I did that. I did that in 8 weeks. So I filed on the last day at their dismay. They did not want me to file. And I just said, I'm an American and I have a right to file. And so I am. And I'd never ran a campaign or did anything like that. And I raised nearly $200,000 and won with 69% in 8 weeks. So this is a similar race, and I have a lot of lead time, and I have a lot of name ID. So I think the primary voters are tired of losing. This last cycle in 22, we've lost every single position possible. There isn't any Republican representation in all of Dallas County.
Wow. Well, that is really impressive that you were able to do all that as a first-time candidate. It sounds like you were surrounded by the right consultants and operatives.
Yeah, actually, you know what? That was my husband and myself and a few grassroots people. So
wow, that is amazing. I know how hard grassroots campaigns are, like when you have no support from the party. Look, and I've been there too.
Yeah.
Recently, I had to manage a writing campaign where in my legislative district in New Jersey, we pulled it off, and I give you a lot of kudos for that.
Thank you. Yeah, you know how hard that is, and I just realizing that our primaries are a lot of times a selection process rather than an election process is really where we need to focus. And I saw you covered some things on election integrity. And I think, to a certain extent, that's where the integrity of our elections start, is in having the people decide what horse they want in the race. And when those are being manipulated, that's just another layer of the people not being represented. And it unfortunately happens more than it should, because it should happen zero, right? You can encourage someone to run or maybe suggest another time, but to willfully block someone from seeking a place on the ballot when they, have every right to be there is unethical. Mm-hmm. And so that just happens too much here. And, and we still lose. So, they just don't have anything to stand on. So we're tired of losing. I think we could be a model for a true rebrand of the Republican Party. And a rebrand doesn't mean, a separate platform or moving away from our core values, right? I'm a constitutional Republican. I believe in the Bill of Rights. I bought my own Federalist Papers, Constitution, Bill of Rights. I went down all the rabbit holes when I was kind of going through my awakening, and we're so far from what was intended that I think the Republican Party is our best hope at returning back, because they're not so far gone, but they've got their problems, that need to be addressed.
Right. Like, all organizations will have their problems, and the RNC, state parties, county parties are no different. Yeah. The best thing you can really do is just see where you went wrong and then fix the problem so it doesn't happen again. But another thing I wanted to cover, Lauren, is how have the Republicans in Dallas County been responding to vote by mail and early voting and ballot harvesting, since that's really something that Republicans have to do in order to be the dominant party. And as you know, Lauren, the Republican base is very hesitant to do any of those things.
Yes, yeah. We experience probably what most parties are, Republican parties are experiencing across the country. I mean, we've got part of the grassroots saying, yes, we need to vote early and participate, up to the extent of the law to kind of play the Dems game. Because how I've heard it described from people is that like we Republicans, right, have been playing a certain game. And over all these years, the Democrat side, or this liberal faction of the Democrat side, has been slowly changing the rules over time. And now they've reached a point where they have gamed the system, but barring any of the other big election stuff in the past election, they've been changing the rules. And now they've fully achieved that. And we're sitting here looking around like, hey, I thought we were playing Monopoly. And they're like, no, we're playing tic-tac-toe. Like they've just completely changed the game. Right underneath our noses, and we haven't woken up to some of these things. And they're like, like so many days voting during early voting. Like, why we have almost a month of voting, it feels like, here in Dallas County. They have county-wide voting, so you can vote anywhere in the county. They have too many polling places, all in the name of access, but really people have more than enough. Like we don't have enough volunteers and election judges and election workers to cover all these polling places. So it leaves it open to fraud and different things. So we're split. People are like, no, election day only. But then a lot of people are like, no, we have to participate in early voting because we can't count on that. And then we saw what happened to Carrie Lake, on her day of voting. So I'd say, it's a mixed bag down here, probably about a 50-50. Let's play the dim game, or no, let's change the game back to the way it should be, which is like paper ballots, precinct only voting. And one day, election day, needs to be a holiday, right? That's the perfect scenario for a Dallas County grassroots Republican, was what they would want.
Got it. And like you said too, how about early voting, that it's not an election day anymore. Now it's an election season.
Yes.
We're keep on tracking down people for people who vote by mail, the early voters, and you just got to make sure at some point that you got to make sure who voted.
Right.
But at the end of the day, there was a poll that came out. I think it was Monmouth University, that about 7 out of 10 Americans support early voting. So early voting is not going to be going anywhere. This is something we're going to have to embrace. And if you don't embrace it, then Republicans will continue to suffer in November elections. And you mentioned before the election integrity article that I wrote for the America's Future blog. Mm-hmm. And I wrote about how we need to embrace election integrity, and that we're not telling voters that we're making it harder for you to vote. We're actually making it harder for you to cheat. And I've been saying this for a very long time, and we should have faith in our elections. If people don't have faith, then no one's going to vote. And
yes.
And you know what? We're going to have to just, if people still don't have faith in our elections at this point, then again, Republicans will still suffer in November elections. But I want to get to our next thing, Lauren. So I know you have a show that you host with your husband.
Yes.
For the Love of Dallas. Tell my viewers about that.
Yes, For the Love of Dallas was kind of birthed out of my experience just going around the county and meeting so many cool people. And I realized when I was at polling locations, meeting people who were not of my political party, but who gave me a chance and voted for me. And a number one thing that was a connector was our servant heart. So our desire to serve the community and volunteer, which I call donating time. So on For the Love of Dallas, I highlight those who give our most precious resource, which is time. And I learned through going through getting donations for my campaign that 100,000 check to one is like a $10 check to another. Like you kind of don't know how much someone's stretching when they donate money. And we need it for all of our organizations and all the things we do, right? It's not terrible, but I realized that time was the greatest equalizer. You really know when someone's stretching, when they're giving hours of their day, because we all have 24. And it's really fascinating to come across people that spend their entire lives donating their time. They're so generous with it and doing such great things. And there's no Republican or Democrat in that. And it was just a really big connector. So I just thought it would be cool to highlight how generous Dallas County is with their time, and highlight some of those cool people that I met along the way.
Also, well, I mean, I've tuned into your show before. I think you do a really good job hosting. Where can my viewers find your show?
Sure. I've got a YouTube channel. I also have my website, fortheloveofdallas.com. And you can search up on YouTube For the Love of Dallas and find, I have 8 episodes in this first season, and in the fall we'll launch a second season.
Wow. Lauren Davis, we need a lot more people like you in politics. And if there were like at least more of you, then people would be more inclined to be involved. But thank you so much for joining. Hopefully we'll get you on real soon.
Yes, appreciate it.
No problem. Talk soon. And to everyone watching, we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.